All right, assalamu alaikum everyone. Let's start. So today we are going to start with trigonometric graphs. Okay, this is the last thing that we need to know in paper one trigonometry. That's what we will start today. It's a short class today, so we'll try to be a bit quick so we can cover all the graphs that we need to. After this, on Friday and Saturday, we will spend some time on doing some practice questions. Okay. Friday, at least. Saturday, we'll see if we can move on. We'll move on to P3 trigonometry. Otherwise, if you still have questions on Saturday, we will be discussing those questions on Saturday then. Okay. All right. Now let's begin. Let's begin with sketching trigonometric functions. All right, so we need to be able to draw graphs of sine x, cos x, and tan x. We need to draw all of these graphs. So how did we used to draw graphs in O levels? What would we used to do for that? We would take some values of x, take the corresponding values of y, draw a table, plot those points, and then join those points using whatever shape it turns out to be. So that's exactly what we do here as well. So let's say we've got this function first, y equals sine of x. We want to draw this graph. Okay, so it's a relationship between x and y. What we can do is we can write down some values of x and y for this. Okay, now let's take some values of x and some values of y for this function. So right now we're saying we're considering x in degrees. All right, let's start from 0 degrees. So what's one full circle? 360 degrees, right? So 360, 0 से 360 तक हम कुछ values लेते हैं and we divide them into some intervals. What we do for sine is we can take intervals 0, 45, 90, 135, 180, 45 degrees के intervals पे values ले लेते हैं फिर. Okay. What happens when x is 0? Now you can use your calculator for this. अभी आहिस्ता आहिस्ता you'll start memorizing these values as well. आपको याद हो जाएंगी. Generally, you'll find that remembering the shape of the graph is going to be the easiest way to remember these values. Okay, अभी हम graphs कर लेंगे एक दफा, तो फिर आपको वो graph की shape याद होनी चाहिए. And from that shape, you can sort of remember कि अच्छा इस point पे क्या value आती है, इस point पे क्या value आती है. But in any case, you have your calculators with you. You can also use them to find what values you have at each of these points. What do you get when x is equal to 0? 0, y equals 0 here. Okay. Now let's take 45 degrees. Sine of 45, that's square root of 2 over 2. हमने यहाँ पे draw करना है तो decimal में लिख लेते हैं. Just an approximate value. We don't have to be very exact here. 0.707, we can just write 0.7. That's enough. हमें sketch करना है. We don't have to draw the graph. Draw में मतलब हमें accurate बहुत ज़्यादा values नहीं रखनी है. We will not be doing this on a graph paper. We'll just be sketching on a paper like this. So we just need approximate values. Okay, so 0.7 is okay. Now what's next? 90, 1, 135, 0.7 again, 180, you get 0 again. Now let me extend this line. Okay, now after this, we have 225. That's going to be minus 0.7. Then 270, that will be minus 1. 315, minus 0.7. And 360, it will be 0 again. ये आपके पास सारी values आ जाएंगी. All we have done is we have just input these values on our calculator x की values डाली, corresponding values for y आ गए. Make sense? Now let's plot these points. We need two axes, x and y. For now, we are not going on the negative side. Let's just get rid of that for now. We're only drawing graph for x between 0 and 360 right now. So you've got 0 here, and then let's say you've got 180 somewhere, and then you would have 360 here. In the middle of 180 and 0, we have 90. We have 45 here, and 135. In the middle of 180 and 360, that is 270. And this is 235, 225, and 315. Now, even though you don't have to be very accurate here, at least try कि जो आप ये intervals ले रहे हैं, they should be approximately equal. ये नहीं हो सकता कि 0 से 45 आप जो है वो 2 सेंटीमीटर ले रहे हैं, फिर 45 से 90 आप 1 सेंटीमीटर कर दें. ठीक है, बहुत accuracy नहीं चाहिए, लेकिन थोड़ा बहुत reasonable होना चाहिए. Okay? So it should be approximately equal. Scale आपका reasonable होना चाहिए इस sense में. Now, what's the y-axis? This is y, this is the x-axis. Now, all we need to do is just plot those points. What value do you get when x equals 0? Y is 0. So y-axis पे, अच्छा ये आप देख लें, y-axis पे, what's our range? What's the minimum value? -1. What's the maximum value? +1. Sin जो है, इसकी values -1 और 1 के दरम्यान में होती हैं, इससे बाहर नहीं जा सकते हैं. Okay? So the minimum point that you need here is just -1. Let's say this is -1. Maximum point that you need here is 1. इससे बाहर नहीं जाएगा graph. Now, how does this graph look like? At 0, you've got 0. At 45, at 0.7, you can just mark that approximately here. Let's say this is 0.7. 90, 135, 0.7, 180, 0. 225 minus 0.7, 270 minus 1. Then at 315, you got minus 0.7 again. At 360, you get 0 again. And just by looking at these points, you can actually figure out what the shape should be like. Is it a straight line? Straight line तो नहीं है, it's a curve. तो आप इन points के through a curve बना दें. All right. This is how the curve is going to look like. This is the shape of the sine graph. Okay. This is y equals sine x. Any problem with this? This is the graph of sine from 0 to 360 degrees. Okay. अब ये शेप आपको याद होनी चाहिए. साइन एक्स ग्राफ की शेप इस तरह की होती है. It goes up like this. From 0 to 90, it goes from 0 to 1. At 90, it's 1. So this is how it's going. These are the important values for sine. At 0, it's 1. At 0, it's 0. At 90, it's 1. At 180, it's 0. At 270, it's -1. And at 360, it's 0 again. So it goes like this. 0, 1, 0, -1, 0. All right. That's the graph of sine x. Now, what happens beyond these points? If you were to take values that are greater than 360 or less than 0, that means on the negative side, we'll find that this shape just keeps repeating itself. So, आप अगर 405 पे check करेंगे, on the 45 degrees और add कर दें 360 में, you will get this point again. 450 degrees, we'll get this point again. So we'll keep getting the same shape again. So if you were to extend this graph on the side here, it's going to look like this. ये इस तरह से ग्राफ चलता जाएगा आगे. Okay. Similarly on the left side, it's going to keep going like this. And so on. So from 0 to 360, it's completing one full cycle, and then it's just repeating towards the right as well and towards the left as well. That is how the graph of sine x looks like. Any problem with this? Now, if I were to show you this graph on Desmos, you'll see it looks like a wave that just keeps repeating itself. इसको इसलिए you'll find in physics, for instance, they will often call this a sine wave, sinusoidal wave, right? So it's going like this. Let me draw that here. Y equals sine of x. This is how it looks like. The points are a bit weird right now. Any guesses why that is the case? Scale is smaller, but why is the graph going to 1 at this value? It's in radians, right? So standard यहाँ पे उसने default radians में रखा होता है. If I were to change this to degrees, where's that यहाँ पे कोई option? Yeah, degrees. Now degrees में करके वो इस तरह से बन गया because वो scale इस तरह का है. So I have to change the scale here. X-axis पे let's go from -180 to 500. Step of, let's say, 45. Remove minor grid lines. Yeah. This is how the graph looks like. Where are the values of y? Yeah, where's of x? This is how it looks like. You see? It's starting from 0. At 0, you've got its value of 0. Then 91, 180, 0, 270 minus 1, and 360, 0. So it's going like this. All right? And now beyond 0 and 360, on the left side and on the right side, you see what happens? It's just going like this. Same shape आपकी चलती जा रही है. So 0 से 360 के दरम्यान में आपका जो एक पूरा ग्राफ हो रहा है वो रिपीट होता जाएगा उसके beyond. Make sense? All right, let's go back here now. Let's think about cos of x now. So that's the graph of sine x. Let's talk about cos x. Y equals cos of x. And before we actually move on, there's also something that's actually interesting to note here. Let's try to connect it to quadrants. Remember quadrants mein, your angle starts from 0 here, and then this is 90, this is 180, 270, and then back to 360. What happens in the first and second quadrant? Sine is positive. So they can 0 से 180 तक, it's positive. From 0 to 180, it is positive. And then what happens in the second and third quadrants? From 180 to 360, sine is negative. So that is where the graph is going below the x-axis. So you're getting negative values there. All right. तो ग्राफ पे भी आपको नजर आ रहा है कौन से एंगल्स पे आपकी साइन की पॉजिटिव वैल्यूज होती हैं, कौन से एंगल्स पे नेगेटिव वैल्यूज होती हैं. All right. So first or second में sine is positive, but here it's negative. Okay. और ग्राफ किस तरह से मूव कर रहा है? 0, 1, then back to 0, then -1, and then to 0 again. Let's look at cos of x now. we could do the same thing here. We could draw a table and see what values we have. Have we talked about the table function before? Table function on your calculators? No? Let's actually learn it right now because it's going to be really very handy when we draw graphs of these functions. अभी तो ये simple function है ना, sin x cos x. तो ये तो हम एक दफा 2-3 दफा कर लेंगे तो हमें याद भी हो जाएंगी values. But when you're asked about drawing graphs, when you're asked about sketching graphs, they often change it a bit. They would ask for the graph of sine of 2x, for instance. Sine of x plus 30 degrees. Okay, थोड़ा सा चेंज कर देंगे. तो फिर आपको या तो थोड़ा सा लॉजिकली सोचना पड़ेगा जो अभी हम फंक्शंस में जाके सीखेंगे, या फिर उसका आसान तरीका ये होता है आप बस वैल्यूज को प्लॉट करो और उनको ज्वाइन कर दो. अब उसके लिए पूरा टेबल बनाना पड़ता है. तो टेबल बनाने के लिए there is a shortcut on your calculators that you can use. And again, you should have a calculator that has this function. Most calculators have it, so you should have any new calculator that should have the table function. Right. आप क्या करेंगे उस calculator के ऊपर? Can I get a calculator? Okay, does this have it? Yeah. Press the mode button. क्लास बेस पे मोड होता है ना, या कोई और नाम है उसका? You'll find table somewhere there. Table आप देखें, table नजर आ रहा है आपको कहीं पे? On this calculator, it's at number 7. उसमें सेटअप में सेटअप क्लास बेस पे सेटअप में जाके देखें, आपको नंबर 9 के आसपास कहीं पे मिलेगा. नंबर 7 पे है. नंबर 7 पे you have table function. Was everyone able to find that? Table function मिल गया सबको? Okay, now when you go to that, सबसे पहले you have to ensure your calculator is in degrees mode. Okay, because यहाँ पे हम degrees में input करेंगे. Calculator degrees mode में है. Okay, so if you look at this, if you press that table function wala button, you will have this screen showing f of x equal to something, right? Here you've got to input your function. यहाँ पे हमारे पास cos x आ रहे हैं ना, input cos of x. x आपके पास होगा जो bracket close वाला बटन है ना, bracket close वाला बटन है, उसके ऊपर x लिखा हुआ है. कैलकुलेटर पे देखें, ब्रैकेट क्लोज वाला जो बटन है उसके ऊपर x लिखा हुआ है. मिल गया सबको? सो कॉज ऑफ x आपको फंक्शन वहां पे इनपुट करना है. डन? सबने कर लिया? नाउ वंस यू डन विद दैट, कॉज ऑफ x ये आपने इनपुट कर दिया. प्रेस द इक्वल बटन. Now you have an option for start. So they're asking which point should you do you want to start from? X की कौन सी वैल्यू से स्टार्ट करना है? So we want to start from 0. आपने यहाँ पे 0 इनपुट कर देना. 0 प्रेस करें and then press the equal button. Done? वो डिफॉल्ट 1 है वहां पे, आपने उसकी जगह 0 डाल देना है. बस 0 डाल देंगे और इक्वल टू बटन प्रेस करें. आपने टेबल फंक्शन में अभी गई नहीं. आप टेबल फंक्शन में मेन्यू में जाके नंबर 9 इज टेबल एंड नाउ यू गॉट दिस. सो पहले टेबल फंक्शन में जाएंगे, उसके बाद आप करेंगे ना वो. क्लास विज में यू कैन एक्सेस द टेबल फंक्शन बाय गोइंग टू मेन्यू एंड देन नंबर 9. नंबर 9 पे टेबल आपको मिलेगा. एफ ऑफ एक्स में आपने वो इनपुट कर देना है, कॉज ऑफ एक्स. देन स्टार्ट में यू इनपुट 0. End is what is the last point that you need. You need 360. Input 360 here. End में 360 डाल दें. Done? So let me actually write that down here. For start, you input 0, and you input 360, and the next thing that they ask for is step. Step means what is the interval that you need. Interval कितना होना चाहिए? ये equal interval में कर सकता है sir. Okay. So you need 0, 45, 90, 135. What's the interval? Interval is 45. Enter 45 for a step there. Press the equal button and you'll get a complete table. अच्छा, क्लास विज में एक और चीज आएगी. पहले आप एफ ऑफ एक्स डालेंगे तो आपके पास दोबारा आता है जी ऑफ एक्स. आपने बस इक्वल टू बटन प्रेस कर देना है उस पर, उसको स्किप कर देना है. क्लास विज में एक्चुअली देयर इज एन ऑप्शन कि आप दो फंक्शंस का एक साथ टेबल बना सकते हो, एंड दैट इज वेरी हैंडी. दैट्स गोइंग टू बिकम वेरी यूजफुल इन अ लेटर टॉपिक आइटरेशन, जब आप दो टेबल्स इकट्ठे बना सकते हो. बिकॉज आपको बहुत दफा क्या होएगा, दो ग्राफ्स इकट्ठे बनाने होंगे, तो वो इकट्ठे टेबल बनाने वाला फंक्शन इज रियली यूजफुल. अच्छा, डज एवरीवन हैव द टेबल नाउ? अब इस टेबल का फायदा क्या होएगा, आपको ये टेबल खुद से बनाना नहीं पड़ेगा, पेपर पे लिखना भी नहीं पड़ेगा, बिकॉज दे आर नॉट गोइंग टू बी चेकिंग योर टेबल. आपको सिर्फ ग्राफ बनाना है, तो आप बस कैलकुलेटर से वैल्यूज देखते जाएंगे, उनको प्लॉट करते जाएंगे और ग्राफ बना देंगे. तो ये सारी एफर्ट जो यहाँ पे लिखने में लग रही है, ये आपको नहीं करनी पड़ेगी. So don't have to make this whole table. आप बस कैलकुलेटर पे कर ले, कैलकुलेटर से देख के वैल्यूज को प्लॉट करते हैं. Make sense? Okay, so you've got this table now. Let's write down the values. ये आपको लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है, आप टेबल्स से देख के भी कर सकते हैं. फातिमा and Khadija, it's 11:38. यहाँ से जाने में 10 मिनट लगेंगे. नहीं, अच्छा ये आगे है. It's 11:38 right now. It's 11:38. That's the time. Okay, 45 पे we've got 0.7. At 90, sorry, it was starting from 1 actually, not 0. At 0, the value of y is 1, then 0.7, then 0. At 135, it should be minus 0.7, then minus 1, then minus 0.7, 0, 0.7, and 1. This is what you should have in your table. Done? Okay, now let's draw that graph. Okay, let's plot values on this graph now. This is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. We're starting from 0. We need values until 360. So you've got 180 somewhere here. And then 360 in the middle. You need 90, 45, 135, 270, 225, and 315. Now let's plot values. So we have to go from -1 to +1. At 0, the value is 1. That's 1 point. Then 45.7, 0, minus 0.7, minus 1, minus 0.7, 0.7, and 1. This is how the values are going to look like. Okay? Now the graph is going to look something like this from left to right. So यहाँ पे interval थोड़ा सा छोटा हो गया मेरा right side के ऊपर. Let me just take it a bit to the right. Okay. Now let's draw this graph. It's going to look like this. यहाँ से पहले ऐसे आएगा, then like this, and this side it's like this, and then this. This is how the graph of cos x looks like. Make sense? From 0 to 360 degrees. Now in this case as well, if you were to go beyond these points, the graph will start repeating itself. So on the left side it looks like this. दोबारा से वही graph repeat होना शुरू हो जाएगा. And similarly on the right side as well, the graph will start repeating itself. इसी तरह से आपका ये graph आगे चलता जाएगा. Make sense? That's the graph that we have from 0 to 360 for cos. And if you were to extend this graph, sine graph and cos graph, they actually look very similar, right? बस वो shift हुए में थोड़ा सा. अगर आप इस graph को थोड़ा shift कर दो, it becomes the graph of sine x. Now, where is it starting from? It's starting from 1, then 0, or minus 1, back to 0, and then 1. जो important points हैं इसके ऊपर वो कौन सी हैं? ये वाले points हैं. This is the first time that we were drawing this graph, so I took points at 45-degree intervals. बाद में जब आप खुद से ड्रॉ कर रहे हैं, आपको जब शेप पता चल गई है कि इस तरह की शेप होगी, you can just take points at 90-degree intervals. और आपको शेप पता होगी तो आप उसको ड्रॉ कर लेंगे उसको यूज करके. Okay, so you've got this point 1, and then you come to 0, then minus 1, 0, and then 1 again. These are the important points that you have on this graph. All right. Now think of quadrants in this case as well. Cos कहाँ पे positive होता है? First and fourth, and the second and third quadrants, you have in the second and third quadrants you have cos negative. Look at these angles now. 0 to 90, cos is positive. That's the first quadrant. 270 से 360, it's again positive. That's the fourth quadrant. दरम्यान में second or third में it's negative from 90 degrees to 270 degrees. All right. This is how the graph of cos x looks like. Any problems? No? So if I were to change sine to cos here, it's the same thing, just shifted by 90 meters to a side. लेकिन अब ये इस तरह से start हो रहा है. Starting from 1, then 0, minus 1, 0, 1. It's going like this. Make sense? So that's the graph of cos of x. ठीक है? Now next we want to do tan. आप लोगों के पास fonts नहीं है ना? Fonts गए? नहीं? Fonts हैं अभी भी? अभी policy implement नहीं हुई है? It's Lahore Grammar School. That's why I won't cancel the class. Khadija and Fatma. आप लोग क्या वो स्पेस सेटलमेंट वाले कॉम्पिटिशन के लिए जा रहे हैं? Congratulations. So you won that competition? आप लोगों का ISL के साथ था? जो आपके ग्रुप जो बनते हैं, टीम जो थी आपकी. In the morning, my JT students were saying कि आप लोगों के साथ जो इंडियन और चाइनीज थे ना वो बहुत अच्छे थे. उनके वजह से जीती आप लोग. उनके साथ आप अच्छे थे. So they had this excuse कि अच्छा उनके साथ वो बहुत अच्छे थे तो. All right. So we've seen the graph of cos x now. ये दोनों ग्राफ्स आपको पता होने चाहिए. इनकी शेप अब आपको पता होनी चाहिए, ठीक है. साइन की शेप और ये cos की शेप. Okay. Notice here, this graph is also between -1 and 1. Cos की भी जो minimum value होती है -1 होती है, maximum value 1 होती है. Just like sine. All right. Now let's look at the graph of tan x. That's the last one that we want to do. Y equals tan of x. Again, we could take values at these intervals. Use the table function. टेबल फंक्शन यूज करें और ये वैल्यूज देखें आपके पास क्या आती हैं. टेबल फंक्शन टेबल आपके पास आ गया सबके पास. So f of x में you input tan x, start 0, end 360, step 45. Okay, you get the table. Now, what are you getting on the table? At 0, you get 0. At 45, you get 1. What about 90? 90 gives you an error. 90 पे error आ रहा है. Now, why is that? Tan is sine over cos. Tan क्या होता है? It's sine theta over cos theta. If theta is 90, you've got sine 90 over cos 90. Sine 90 is what? 1. What about cos 90? That's 0. 1 over 0 is undefined. So when tan equals, when the angle is 90, tan is going to be undefined. That's why you're getting an error there. 90 degrees के ऊपर tan की कोई value नहीं होती है. Okay? So table में अब आप ये skip कर देंगे. You don't have any value here. Let's actually look at the other values now. What happens in 135? -1, then 0, -1, 0, 1. No, sorry, that's not correct. 0 and then 1, and this is undefined again. This is undefined. And then you have 1 after that, and 0 then. No, -1, sorry. Yeah. This is how the table looks like. 0, 1, and then an error, then -1, 0, 1, then an error again, -1, 0. Let's plot these points from 0 to 360 degrees. All right, so we are going from 0 to 360. On the x-axis, intervals are at 180, then this is 90, this is 270. And in the middle, we have other values as well, 45, 135. But बहुत ज़्यादा clutter हो जाएगा. I'm not showing them here for now. So let's actually show them. छोटा सा करके लिख देते हैं. 45. Then you have 135, 225, 315. All right. Now let's plot these values. First of all, remember what is the limit for tan? Tan की lower limit, tan की range क्या होती है? It's basically there's no range for this. Sine और cos की -1 से 1 होती है. Tan is from negative infinity to positive infinity. Tan की कोई भी value हो सकती है. All right. तो अब 1 से ऊपर भी जा सकता है ग्राफ और -1 से नीचे भी जा सकता है. That's the first thing you need to keep in mind. But let's plot values now. So let's say I have 1 here in this case, and this is -1. Let's plot these values. At 0, I have 0. At 45, I've got 1. At 90, I have an error, so I can't put any value there. So I skip that. 135, -1, 180, 0. 225, 1. At 270, I have an error again. At 315, it's -1, and at 360, it is 0. This is what we have. Now, we can't really figure out what the shape of the graph is just from this, right? Because the problem is, this function does not have any value at 90 and at 270. इन दो पॉइंट्स पे कोई वैल्यू नहीं आ सकती है. ठीक है, x की वैल्यू 90 इनपुट करते हैं, उस पर y की कोई वैल्यू नहीं आती. इसका मतलब ये है कि ये ग्राफ जो है इस पॉइंट पे ब्रेक हो रहा होगा. रिमेंबर दोस फंक्शंस इन ओ लेवल्स जो आपने देखे थे पहले, रेसिप्रोकल फंक्शंस, फॉर एग्जांपल y इक्वल्स 1/x. इसका ग्राफ कैसा होता था? It used to look like this. एक पार्ट इधर, एक पार्ट इधर. Why? Because when x was equal to 0, this function was undefined. तो आपका ग्राफ दो पार्ट्स में आता था. Remember that? It's similar to that there's some values at which the function is undefined. At 90 degrees, the function is undefined, and at 270 degrees, the function is undefined. आप क्या करेंगे? उन दो points के ऊपर, you're going to have these vertical lines. At 90 and at 270, we normally draw these as dotted or dashed lines like this, not solid lines. These are two lines that we have. इन लाइंस को आपका ग्राफ कट नहीं कर सकता, बिकॉज अगर कट कर जाएगा, अगर यहाँ पे कोई वैल्यू होगी तो इसका मतलब है कि 90 के ऊपर ये y की वैल्यू है. यहाँ पे आपका ग्राफ आएगा ही नहीं, क्योंकि 90 के ऊपर ग्राफ एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं करता. 270 पे आपका ग्राफ एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं करता, उसकी कोई वैल्यू है ही नहीं. सो योर ग्राफ इज गोइंग टू बी ब्रोकन एट दीज पॉइंट्स. जो 90 के लेफ्ट साइड वाला पार्ट है ये अलग से होएगा, दरम्यान वाला पार्ट अलग से होएगा, राइट वाला पार्ट अलग से होएगा. इसके डिफरेंट पार्ट्स बन रहे होंगे. ठीक है. Now let's look at the part that we have towards the left of 90 first. What happens on this side? We only have 2 points. अब 2 points से तो आपको नहीं समझ आ सकती कि क्या shape बनेगी. You can try to think about what happens as the graph gets closer to 90. आप ट्राई करें कैलकुलेटर पे tan of 89 for instance. What's tan of 89? Tan of 89 is 57. Start from tan of 80, let's say. वो तो बहुत बड़ी वैल्यू होगी. Let's start from tan of 80. What's that? Okay, tan of 80 is 5.7. Tan of 89 is 57. Tan of 89.9, what's that? 572. So you see what's happening to those values? The y values are getting larger. They're getting bigger and bigger. So as the graph gets closer to 90, जितना आप 90 के करीब जाते जाओगे y की वैल्यूज को क्या हो रहा है वो बड़ी होती जा रही है. They're increasing. So the graph here is going to look like this. यहाँ से इधर आएगा इस point पे और it's going to go up like this. It's going to keep going up and up such that it keeps getting closer and closer to 90. लेकिन वो कभी उस लाइन को टच नहीं करेगा. Okay? ये साथ उसके चलता जाएगा उस तरह से. Make sense? Any problem with this? ये क्लियर है सबको? So जैसे जैसे आप 90 के पास वैल्यूज इनपुट कर दें 89, 89.9, 89.999, the values of y keep getting bigger. आपका ग्राफ ऊपर को जाता जाएगा यहाँ पे. Okay, tan 90 undefined है उसके पास वैल्यूज ऊपर जा रही होंगी. Now let's look at what happens in the middle here. 180 पे the value is 0. Here you've got -1. We need to see what happens in this region. 90 और 135 के दरम्यान में क्या होता है? Try a value that's slightly bigger than 90. Start from 100 for instance. What's the value that you get at 100? What's tan of 100? Minus 5.7. Tan of 91. That will be -57. Right? But negative side पे उतना जाता जाएगा. Tan of 90.1. That will be -572. Right? तो अब नेगेटिव साइड पे ग्राफ नीचे को जाता जा रहा है. इस साइड पे the graph is going to look like this. It's going to go down like this. Make sense? And then the same thing repeats on the right side here. आपने देखते हैं 270 के पास क्या होता है? Try 260, 269, 269.9. The graph is going to keep going up and up और यहाँ पे आपका ग्राफ जो है वो इस तरह से लगेगा. All right? And then the same thing happens in this region after 270. 270 से बड़े नंबर्स आप थोड़ा सा बड़ा नंबर ट्राई करोगे y की वैल्यू बहुत नेगेटिव चले जाएगी and the graph is there is going to look like this. This is your tan x graph. Y equals tan x. Okay? So it has these breaks in the middle, 90 पे और 270 पे. Make sense? अब ये ग्राफ भी रिपीट होता जाएगा इस तरह बाकी ग्राफ से. ये भी इसी तरह से होएगा. ये लेफ्ट साइड पे ऐसे आएगा फिर दोबारा दरम्यान में से ब्रेक करेगा फिर दोबारा से इस तरह से चलेगा. राइट साइड पे भी it's going to keep going on like this. Then it's broken like this in the middle and then the shape starts repeating itself. तो ये जो शेप है दरमियान वाली ये शेप रिपीट होती जा रही है साइड्स पे इसके. All right? This is the tan x graph. Now, in the next class, we'll talk about the properties that we have for these graphs. उनको किस तरह से use करना है, इससे related graphs कैसे बनाने हैं, और इस पे कुछ example questions करेंगे हम, ठीक है? Let me mark attendance quickly. Then we can leave.